Welcome to another episode of Money You Should Ask. I'm your host, Bob Wheeler, and in this episode, we're going to explore, question, examine, converse, dig deep, expose, laugh, and cry about the money beliefs, money blocks, and life challenges of our next guests. Turn up the volume, listen, learn, and laugh. I'd like to thank our sponsor, The Money Nerve, a financial resource that helps you have a healthier relationship with money. Do you feel shame around your past financial decisions? Do you feel alone in your financial struggles? Do you self-sabotage your potential financial successes? Do you keep making the same choices, expecting different results? The Money Nerve has just launched a new online course called The Course to Financial Freedom. To learn more, go to themoneynerve.com/course. The Money Nerve has an offer to all Money You Should Ask listeners for a 25% discount on the course. Use code MYSA, all caps, 25, and start your course to financial freedom now. Thanks again to our sponsor. So I'm actually really honored today to have two guests, a husband and wife. They have their own podcast called the Cosmic Matrix Podcast, which you can find on veilofreality.com, and we'll have all that on the website. Please welcome Bernhard Guenther and his wife, Laura Matsue. And these guys and gals have a great background. They've studied a lot of healing modalities. Bernhard has studied at Esalen Institute in Big Sur, which is an amazing place. He studied at the Percussion Institute of Technology. Like, it's probably, I could take 30 minutes to talk about what each of you have done because it's pretty intense. Laura is offering now astrology. She's a meditation teacher, holistic life coach, registered yoga teacher, and you've got also a range of modalities. It's like, I think we could talk for like about 100 hours and I would just soak it all up. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And so, on this show, we talk a lot about money. And I imagine in your work, you deal with a lot of energy. And I'm wondering, for both of you, what does the word money mean to you? And how does it relate to your lives?
Well, I'll start. Right now, I'm really looking forward to this podcast, this conversation, because we have definitely I've gone through a transformation around my beliefs around money. Right now, as of now, money is freedom for me, to really to be able to do my work better, to be of better service, to have a certain freedom to navigate in this world, to really do what I truly want to do from a deeper soul perspective. Back in the days, I had a lot of conflict with my spiritual aspirations and money, and I equated money with evil. It's bad. It's not good to have money. When you have, the more money you have, the greedier you are, all these beliefs. And I went through a whole transformation of reconciling my spiritual aspiration with like everyday money affairs, so to speak. Mm-hmm. That's cool. It in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah, a similar journey for me. It's actually in my astrology chart to learn about money. It's part of my own soul purpose. Like I've been so good at dealing with like in-depth emotional stuff, spiritual stuff, and kind of took the aesthetic approach to life. My parents as well, they told me things like money doesn't buy happiness, and kind of ingrained this belief that money was less important than other things in life, which I think is a good journey to go on, because that helped me strengthen my spiritual practice and explore other things. But then when it came down to it, like when I was struggling financially, my spiritual practice suffered because the basic survival needs weren't taken care of. So I really realized that it was even part of my own spiritual path to find out more about money and how to create security and how to create a life for myself. So that's kind of where I started unpacking these beliefs I had about money.
Yeah. And did it sounds like your parents were a little were supportive in the notion that money wasn't the driving force.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, Bernhard, you were saying that money is evil and people are greedy. And was that something that you just observed, or was that something that you heard growing up?
It's more like it ties into growing up, with my parents' setup. I grew up in Germany, which maybe should be obvious already based on my accent. And Germany, and my dad was always a good company man, right? And he's been with this, all the generation been with the same company for 40, 50 years, and this pension, retirement. He was all about education. And it started in school. I didn't like school, being told what to learn. I couldn't find any passion. And I just followed along the program, even went in Munich I started to study economics and business for the only reason because, well, life is about, I had this program, the more money I have, the happier I will get. That's what people say. So I just should go there and study economics in the University of Munich. And it didn't make me happy. I was completely depressed and all of that. So like then that's when they developed like almost this rejection of the world of money, like this I went the opposite end in the sense. I had to first, like, who am I, right? Who am I truly? And I was rejecting all of my father's side, and he was also very security based, have a good education, the secure job and all of that. And that's been a program that's been running for me for a while too, right? So that was always fear based, and my projections against money is evil, just I just thought, like, rich people are just greedy, and then no rich person is honest, they must have, you see, like, it's not that black and white. But I had a lot of like judgments and projection that came, actually, I realized, through my own process, from my own unhappiness within myself. And I got into some sort of also poverty consciousness, like, blaming the outside world for my affairs and whatnot, and similar to what Laura experienced too. But at the same time, I realized I needed to find myself first, my path, my passion, right? And then I realized, okay, then, I need to also, there needs to be an energy exchange. In the end, as cliche as it sounds, money is like, it's not this material thing, but it's about energy exchange. It's a give and take.
Yeah.
And the deep, I found my passion in the work I'm doing, also body work, massage, holistic coach, and everything else I'm doing right now. I love it. But at the beginning, I even had a hard time charging clients.
Right.
Because it equated like, oh, I'm doing spiritual work, it comes so easy to me, I should do it for free. And then there was even guilt coming up for charging. And it took me some years to really like reconcile that and like, okay, this is what I'm worth. And it's an energy exchange. I'm giving you this and you're giving me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what can you say a little bit more about, because this comes up a lot. I know this happens with therapists. They'll tell me, I don't like, I don't want to charge my client. We were in the middle of a really intense process, and then it feels bad to go, that'll be $120, thank you.
Yeah.
And right, it diminishes the experience. So how did you come to realize it's an exchange, and it's okay to charge because it is the exchange? Like, what was the shifting moment, or was it moments? Like, what was the journey?
Yeah, I can answer that. I think even just recently we realized that we were doing our work and we were exhausted after, and we were not, that was a sign that we were kind of operating at a deficit. We were putting way more time and energy than we were getting back. So we realized that our business model was not functioning in a way that was allowing us to stay healthy emotionally, spiritually. We were running ourselves we were just over giving. And I think it's really awesome to over deliver, for the people that you work for, but we were just exhausting ourselves with our work. And then it was clear, like, I think we heard this quote once, that money is fuel, and we were basically running out of fuel.
Right.
So yeah, that was basically a recent realization, because I've gone through the same journey as well. And then I just realized it's just a belief like anything else, so like your belief that you should do things for free is a belief. Your belief that you should charge a few $100s for a service is also a belief. And it just depends on what paradigm you're operating in.
Yeah. And ultimately it ties also what I realized, it's definitely in process and stages, your own self-worth, right?
Yeah.
That's what it kind of ties into. And then also just on a very practical perspective. You know, I mean, when I go to a restaurant or go to get my car fixed, I pay for the service. Of course, I pay for it. I don't expect it to be
Yeah.
free. So how should it be any different in the profession we are in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love that money is fuel. That's an awesome quote. I really like that. And I'm wondering though, do you find other folks in your community in doing healing work and energy that there's this push away from or from money?
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's so interesting to me because in energy and in the healing work, we're feeding into our goodness and we're feeding into healing the wounds, and yet money seems to be a wound that gets bypassed.
Yeah, that's like what I touched on before, this like aesthetic approach to life. Like most spiritual people think, oh, I'm just gonna go meditate and live in a cave and ashrams and that's gonna be my life, you know? And they
Right.
neglect, even if you go to India, you actually see that they neglect the material world because that aesthetic approach to life is infused into their whole culture. So I think it's really, I mean, that's kind of where the hard grounded work in 3D reality comes in, is like, okay, let me do my taxes, my finances, my bookkeeping. That stuff isn't fun, you know. Maybe it's fun for you. I don't know.
Wait a minute. This is news to me. Oh no.
But that's where the work comes in. And I mean, basically it comes down to our values, you know, like we're really big about the embodiment process, which is bridging the spiritual into matter, bringing spirit and matter together. And that includes making yourself financially literate. Like, of course it does. If you're operating and you're in like $20,000 in debt or even more, some people I know who went to university and took a debt for that, then that impacts every area of your life. You can't actually separate it from your spiritual, emotional. You can kind of have little compartments, but you can't separate it. It always impacts all areas of life. So I think that was a huge reality check for me, because I mean, there's many people who actually get angry at us for charging, you know, because they operate in that belief system that this should be free. You should be doing this all for free. And I actually tried that. I tried to, similar to him, I was doing free sessions. I had lived in an intentional community, an eco village, which was very all about no one gets paid. We just live here in a community. And it didn't work for me, you know.
Yeah.
So my whole belief system had to change as I realized what was and what wasn't working for me.
Yeah, Laura made a good point, especially because at the beginning, also my work, like also the reason, you know, our work, I write a lot, I put a lot of free content out there.
Yeah, a
you know,
lot,
a lot
yeah.
of articles, you know, podcasts, essays, videos, all. And then especially this, what I notice in this world nowadays, this information age, since so much free stuff is on the internet, people have a certain entitlement. Oh, this should be free. They don't understand how much work goes into even producing a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's a little bit like this conditioning that's happening, and similar to what Laura experienced. I used to like, you know, I started giving sessions because people had so many questions about my work, and I have a natural gift to hear people's story, to meet them at and give them advice, coaching, and whatnot. And I also gave free sessions at the beginning, you know, and people were like struggling, like, okay, we can just pay me whatever you want, you know. But I've noticed that those clients were the most insincere.
They didn't value you.
They didn't value
Right.
truly. Like that's very interesting. The more people are willing to invest in themselves, the more successful they were on their own process. And I noticed in myself, because I've also been, despite my issues with money, like I didn't think twice. Like with the material world, Laura knows, I have a hard time going shopping. I don't really need this. I don't know, like, you know, maybe at some later time. But when it comes to self-development, I've invested $10,000s of dollars into Esalen courses, workshops, self-development, you know what I mean? Learning about myself, nothing material, but investing into myself, which really helps me grow.
Yeah.
Right?
And how do you, when people get mad at you, like, what do you say? How dare you charge me? I just had a great experience. How dare you charge me? What do you say?
Well, from now on, we don't want to cater to people who we have.
First of all, I want to say people who say this actually never had sessions with us to
Yeah,
begin with. They get
these
this
are
mad at
most
social
people,
media.
yeah,
I
just-
remember I produced this 8-hour webinar, like long webinar, on a certain topic, and I charged, God forbid, $200 for it. The people were attacking me on Facebook, like, what are you charging this for? And all of that. And I'm like, And a good question how you react, because of my own insecurity, sometimes I start defending myself and explaining myself, which I shouldn't do. I'm like, take it or leave it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah, these a lot of the people who they had this belief, basically. A lot of these people also live in a state of poverty themselves, so paying even $50 for something is a stretch for them. So, and I found the same thing that he did, is that if people are willing to invest in themselves, then they'll get a lot more out of it. It's almost like they have more skin in the game. So they're like, if I give them a homework exercise and the coaching, they'll go and do it because they want to get their money's worth, you know. And then if you give stuff away for quote unquote free, then it doesn't seem like they value it as much. In fact, they usually have like feedback and criticism. If you give stuff away for free, they're like, oh, you could improve this free product, which is awesome, the feedback, but it's usually coming from a place of like wanting more, wanting it to be a different way. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I too used to, because accounting was something that came easy to me. It wasn't what I envisioned doing in my life. It was just, oh, this is easy. And so I did it. And so then I felt guilty that other people that really studied really hard and really didn't like what they did, charge money. And I'm like, oh, so here, I'll just do it. And so I sort of blamed my staff in the beginning. I'd say, I'd do it for free. But my staff, apparently, they like to eat and pay rent. And and I wouldn't be able to keep anybody. So, you know, I started out sort of redirecting to my staff. And then later, you know, I'd have clients that were, you know, billionaires would say, hey, can you give me a discount? And I finally was able to say, well, here's the thing. Here's what I charge. And if it's not a good price for you, that's fine. But if I discount you, I'm going to resent working for you. And I'm not going to give you all of my energy. And I know we give a really good service. You were highly recommended. And he goes, enough said. No discounts. And, you know, but it took a while. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard to say, I have value, right? We want, you know, emotionally, we want to say, you know, I see my goodness and I know my value. But when it comes to financially, it's really hard to say, yeah, see my monetary value.
Yeah.
And because we don't see it as an exchange like you were talking about, that it's a quantitative measurement instead of an energy exchange of so.
Yeah, that's a key thing too. I learned as well is that when I could always tell when I wasn't charging what I was worth, because I would actually end up tired and resenting the person, and that's no good for the kind of work that we do, obviously.
Right. Now, Laura, did you envision the current future, your current? Oh my God, let me try again. Did you, as a child, envision your future? And is your current reality the vision that you had?
No, definitely not. I think my first like wish as a child, I actually wanted to be famous and be on SNL, because I watched SNL when I was really young, and I was like, wow, I thought they had so much fun and laughing all the time, and I had no idea. My life took a sharp turn in 2012. Actually, I had a bunch of awakening experiences that just redirected my life completely. So yeah.
And you talked about, even in your astrology chart, that learning about money is part of your life journey.
Yeah.
What are the things that you think that you need to learn, or what are the things that you're looking at as you educate yourself?
Really just, I mean, the other day we met with our own business coaches, and they were showing us our books for the past 6 months. And it was like a whole new world for me. Like I can go into like trauma and like all this spiritual part of reality, but then when it comes to this what may seem very basic to them, I was like, whoa, like this is very new. And so that's really just being aware of like what's going on in my finances, tracking it, being aware of where I'm like spending money, losing money, where it's profitable for me to spend my time, you know. And interestingly, it actually tends to be in alignment with where my passions lie and where I'm not putting enough time and energy into. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
like it's fairly new to us to actually look at our books and see where money's coming in, see where we're losing money, see where it's better for us to invest time.
Yeah.
We've been completely in the dark about this until even just a couple months ago. So that was a huge reality check for me. And I can always tell when there's stuff for me to learn because it's completely confusing to me at first. Like I'm sure what you do, like I would just be like, whoa, like a whole new planet to me, basically.
Yeah. And when you started looking at the numbers a couple of months ago, like, are you doing budgeting? Are you like, okay, we're going to spend?
Oh, yeah. We're not.
Well, it's interesting because like similar to, like I always threatened like the tax appointment, which actually you helped me, like, even with your nature and everything, like it's actually not that bad. I just gotta, instead of resisting and fearing it, no, I have to take responsibility and look at it. This is just the way it is. The more I resist it, here's the thing, the lack of clarity and knowledge got me more anxiety than until I actually see the numbers and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we also invested in the business coaches and a bookkeeper. Finally, now we need to more responsible, possibly incorporate at some point in all of that. And what I saw interestingly, because I've been always without budget, just kind of going by, it works itself out somehow, right?
Right.
And we're actually looking at the books, we were pretty good. We always had more profit than we were spending money.
Yeah.
But now we know better. Now we can do it more consciously, right? To even like expand from that place on. So it gives us a better clarity and understanding. And then like having that foundation, that knowledge now benefits our own process and our own business, really,
Yeah. I think our lesson too is learning how to like spend money consciously, because I came from like I spent the last few years like traveling to India and Peru and really focusing on spiritual stuff. I don't know how to spending money is actually very new to me. It started making me uncomfortable as well, being like, okay, like we need to buy a nice camera or whatever, like that's actually kind of my discomfort zone. Whereas more people like want to buy more stuff. I'm actually like, okay, like I don't know what to do with it when I have it.
Yeah. Where do you feel the discomfort, like physically, for both of you, when you feel the resistance or you feel the uncomfortableness? Like, where does that appear? How does that show up?
That's a good question.
I think just like a fear, a fear. That's what it comes down to.
Right in the tummy a little, just anxiety, just fear, It's like it ties. I mean, we use meditation. Like usually when, in our process, we also need to apply the work we teach, right? So we're all about somatic work, meditation. So taking responsibility for everything you feel, right? Not blaming the outside world. Key point, right?
Yeah.
Especially with money, like I realize you can do all the visualizations and affirmations, like I'll be a millionaire next year, blah, blah, all this thing. Yeah. If you don't dig deeper and go into the unconscious, self-defeating beliefs or the fears, right? And my meditation somatic into my body is like, it's, not to sound too catastrophic, but it's like it's rooted in the fear of death, of security, of, oh my God, I'm not going to survive. Right. So hence the hoarding, the clinging, the holding on, right? And even I noticed I'm good at savings, but I always had this imaginary number. I should have so much amount of my money saved to feel secure, and that would go up and up. So I would just start to hoard. But it got me also, but I had a hard time investing. So becoming more comfortable with spending larger amounts of money, which then did overriding this fear. Then I realized too, like that's where money is energy comes in. It's just engaging in the flow, because the more I spend consciously, the more, maybe sounds cheesy, but the more the universe is responding and giving back to me. So there's like an interrelational loop, right? It's kind of, I noticed the more I invest in myself when I took courses, workshop, all of a sudden, I'm getting more clients all of a sudden. So there's like weird mystery.
Yeah. Well, I think being conscious doesn't take away from spirituality or any of that stuff. It's just, I think a lot of us do have that I call it the under voice, that where, I want $1 million. Not for you, right? And, like, I want success. Don't kid yourself. And it's like, right? And then, but that's the voice that's actually driving us, not the one that we're proclaiming. And as you were talking, it made me realize for myself, like money is a thing Now, I haven't always done things correctly because I had a lot of self-sabotage, but reading numbers and looking at stuff was something that felt really safe and secure.
Mm.
The rest of my life was, is this going to kill me? Like, I had a lot of trauma, and so everything was, my measurement was, will I die? Talking to a person, am I going to die? Stepping out, am I going to die? But you give me numbers, I'm like, oh, and I felt completely safe. And I think a lot of people, my experience is a lot of people have trauma around money or finances.
Oh, for sure.
Carrying the family baggage or the family shame or the family secrets. And
yeah, we've been unpacking that. Yeah. Like,
Definitely.
I mean, because his family were academics, my family were academics. So the belief there is that you need to go into tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of debt, and then you get trapped in a job that you hate anyway, And I luckily resisted that like crazy and didn't end up going down that road. But I still had that belief that I had to get rid of. It's like, okay, you can only, this is the path. You have to go to university for either 3 to 8 to 10 years, and then you get a job, and that's the only way to make money. And then I had a very entrepreneurial spirit, even at a young age. And so I was figuring out how to make money at like 5 years old, or not 5, but like 8. I would go to school and make little things and sell them to people. So I saw actually very young that you could create your own abundance and create your own life. But then that programming always came up. I'd be like, no, how am I doing this? Like, even when I was working as an independent journalist, I was getting paid jobs, and I was like, but I didn't go to school to do this. I have to go back to school. Like, that programming just went against what was actually happening in reality. So that was my own belief to get over, that you could just go out and make a life and be entrepreneurial and create your own life, basically, and just completely not engage in that system, Yeah, so that's where my underlying belief. I have that voice has calmed down, because now I just don't believe in that system at all. I see my friends who are in a lot of debt, and they have to work at this job to pay it off, and it just seems that they're operating in an energetic deficit, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier.
So this place where you have to be certified or educated or a professional, that is so, I think that is really strong. It's in the US, maybe everywhere else, Germany, I'm not sure, but I know when somebody tells me, oh, I didn't go to college, there's a part of me that's like, what? But you seem smart, or you seem capable, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's my own blind spot of thinking, because that's what I was taught. You have to be qualified. You can't, and then, what? I'm doing this and people are paying me. And so I really resonate with that place of, in academia, yeah, you got to do all this stuff and go into debt, do what you hate. What a joyous idea. Do what you hate. That's terrible.
Exactly.
But so many people do it.
Yeah.
Now,
Exactly.
Bernhard, did you have a job that you were in for a while that you didn't like it in school, but was there something that you did that, like, every day, wow, I sure don't like this?
Yeah, that was when I'm in Munich. After high school, I said, like, I studied business economics at the University of Munich for 2 years, but I hated it. I was, and then something happened. I made a good friend, and he introduced me to drums and percussion. And I was at the age of 19. I remember clearly in this bass and playing drums, and I had this experience like, wow, like a transcendental experience, like playing drums connected to be something high. I felt so much joy and bliss like I'd never experienced in my whole childhood. Because I never knew what I wanted to do. And in this moment, this is what I want to do. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
So I quit, like, out of the completely illogical, right?
Yeah.
From the outside perspective, and
Right.
certainly not to the liking of my parents. I quit at college or university and started just working in the warehouse, day job, to save up money, because I wanted to study this. I want to pursue the 100%, to save up money to go to LA, to the Percussion Institute of Technology, very world-renowned percussion school. And I pursued that, like, to give my parents credit, they definitely also supported me in their own ways, although they couldn't understand what is he doing.
Right.
They always like, security, maybe you should finish get your certificate or your degree. But that, I just realized I've been not taught in school, I don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. Some people find their path in academia, right? That's, every each their own.
Absolutely.
But it's so homogenized. It's like, it's such an, everybody's so different.
Yeah.
And I was missing in public education. Nobody taught me how to prepare for my emotional life. I was always very sensitive.
Or financial literacy too.
Or financial, any of that. Like, I didn't learn. So I want to learn about myself. I want to express myself artistically. I felt like expressing the other extreme of my dad, which my dad is very logical, atheist, business oriented, more power to that. And I was like, no, I want to like go and play drums and take mushrooms and see what's happening.
Right, exactly.
I want to explore myself. There was a self-exploration. And then during that time in my 20s, I had this dream. I want to be a rock star. I want drumming and be in Hollywood. And then that was a whole culture shock to, all of that. But, I didn't mind working like I would like day jobs. In that moment, I didn't care because I had this passion, this driving force, But similar what Laura experienced, for me, it was like, I thought I was going to do. And then within that self-exploration, I found other talents I didn't know I'd had, like my healing hands, like body work. I really hadn't talent for that came similar to you with the numbers, came easy to me. And then I met my mentor, who is a client of yours, Russ Pfeiffer. I met him in the 90s. He introduced me to body work in the 90s and yoga. And he was my roommate and he showed me some, techniques. And then people came to me and because I had this gift, and then wow, all of a sudden I have this, and then I went to massage school, bodywork and Esalen. I feel also, the problem with the education system, we're supposed to figure out what we want to do at the age of 18, 19, 20. But most of it we don't know until later. So I didn't have this other gift until my late 20s or early 30s. Oh, I can do this. And then, similar to what you asked Laura before, if you would told me like 15, 20 years ago that I'm doing what I'm doing now, I would laugh into your face. It's like, what, kidding me? Like, and now I'm but truly fulfilled,
Right.
And I'm actually glad, really grateful that I quit college because I didn't get programmed with all this stuff. I learned. And there's something to be said, like there's still like, I've learned, I've studied myself. I've learned, took workshops, read a lot, studied. I became my own university because you still want to become knowledgeable, right? About all of that.
Yeah, for me, I didn't like the structure of the school system and how it was set up. I found it was very it didn't actually leave space for innovation because you had this set structure of books you had to learn from that was decided upon, by the school board and whatnot. And I was so much more out there and very I was very curious. I was an avid reader even at a very young age, but what they were teaching in school was not innovative to me at all. So that was my own struggle. And then I found out, the whole education system it doesn't leave a lot of room for innovation as well. Like the way it's set up, it's kind of okay, this is what we're learning, So for me, I think even with Bernhard's work, we're very cutting edge in spirituality. We really go into different areas that may be beyond the norm. So we need that freedom to explore as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me. I know education's important, but I do feel like a lot of, especially public schools, are about training sheep and teaching compliance. I was fortunate. I went to a liberal arts college where we were encouraged to challenge the teachers, where we were given a lot of expression, which was something that I appreciated. I didn't want to go to college, but for me, I knew that if I didn't get a college degree, I probably wouldn't be able to, my programming was I wouldn't be able to have success because I would look at somebody and go, what do you mean you don't have a college education? I knew that people would look at me that way. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it and get it over with, take the pill. Because I don't think our education system nurtures actual knowledge. It nurtures, learn this and regurgitate it on a test, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more mental, memory. If you're good at memorizing, you can a student basically. It's not much creativity, right?
Yeah.
But as you shared this, I remember going back to your first question about when my first belief about money is bad and evil, that, because I didn't find happiness within that system, which was geared towards success in the material world. I rejected it completely. You know what I mean? So similar had this my own I went the other extreme to like just spirituality, self-work, and all of that, but neglected the physical world, you know. And now
Yeah.
we realized of our own process. Now it needs to be holistic, all inclusive.
Yeah.
You cannot separate it. And we
Yeah.
also noticed, like what Laura alluded to, you need to have a good physical foundation, you know, to work, to do even deeper spiritual work. That's one of the teachings. I don't know if you've heard of him, Gurdjieff. He's like a esoteric mystery school teacher. He wrote the book In Search of the Miraculous and the Fourth Way Teachings. And he talked to, before you can go deeper into really true, deeper spiritual work or esoteric work, you need to become a good obyvatal, which is a Russian like expression for like a good worker, meaning like have a foundation in the physical world,
Yeah.
right? To handle your physical affairs. You know, we even process a lot of people, like they want to meditate and ascend into the ether, but they don't have even their basic physical body nutrition, you know, in order, like on that basic level.
Or even like like a home, you know,
Like a
some
home,
of them
like
are
a
just like
foundation, right?
Yeah,
To live somewhere,
yeah.
or like, you know, just, and that ties exactly into the money topic as well,
Yeah.
right? To have a certain financial foundation and taking responsibility for it, basically.
Yeah, it's also, I study Tibetan Buddhism, and it's woven into the philosophy of Buddhism that you need to have that basic physical foundation, that livelihood, in order to do the deeper work. Because if you're worried about how you're going to eat or where you're going to live, then how are you going to have the space to do that deeper inner work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when I was in Tanzania, a lot of people, you know, average income at the time was $99 a year, $100 a year, and very happy people, which blew my mind, which was part of my life journey of like, I came back going, these people are happy and they're living in huts that they just pick a space on the land. In the US, you know, if you don't have a house, then you're homeless and you're not allowed on the street, right? And then like LA has a very large homeless population, and like down my street, there's tents and tents. 10 years ago, they would have all just been, you know, tear the tents down. If you don't have a support system or a network, it is hard to even survive. Whereas when I was in Africa, people could live off the land. And, you know, I've heard up in like Seattle or Portland, they're starting to put apple trees and fruit trees in parks, which I think is awesome. But if you don't have the basics or access to them, it is hard to survive, I think, in this country.
Yeah,
agree,
that's
yeah.
a good point too, because we're in a very different situation. Like I was trying to live similar to maybe how they lived in Tanzania, at an intentional community. Like, okay, let's all grow our own food and just be happy and don't worry about money so much. But, you know, we are in this Western context. So you have to always, you know, as much as these philosophies, these tribal communities, like they feed our idealism about this ideal world, it doesn't actually apply to the world that we live in as well. And I'm sure, I bet you that this community in Tanzania, they have a sense of community too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they have that connection.
I think that is one of the, I think in a way, a disadvantage for us in the West. We are so prosperous that we have used it to alienate ourselves from community. We have the money to build a wall and block people out. And in Africa and in communities where I've been, where there's not so much wealth, they rely on each other. And even if you're annoyed with, you know, the local drunk, he's still part of the community, and somebody's still looking out for him, right? It's like everything is part of the community, whatever it is. And here we can go, I'm going to just move to another neighborhood, or I'm going to build a bigger fence. And I think a lot of people in this country, my belief is that we're yearning for community, and we're yearning for connection, but we've been shamed into believing that it's not cool.
It's like the hyper individualization.
Exactly. I mean, that's maybe the dark side. You know, I mean, even like for the Bible, the love for money is the root of all evil. You know what I mean? Which the people mistake, oh, money is the root of all evil.
Exactly.
No. It's not the love, it's the greed. You know, which I have to give, like, you know, despite obviously there's a lot of craziness happening in this country right now, right? But I also know for myself, like what I've built here my work and everything, I couldn't have done it in Europe, actually.
Right.
There's been more freedom to express myself, to do the work I do. You know what I mean? That's almost the paradox. There's more social safety net in Europe or in Germany,
Right.
but I would have not been able to freely pursue my business as I'm doing here. So there's more opportunity, but more risks to fall deeper as well, in a sense.
Yeah.
But it's like, Lord, there's hyper individualization. It's a, we've been also listening. I'm sure you're familiar with, gotten more into Robert Kiyosaki's work. You know,
love him.
I like him a lot. And he also said it's like finding your path. And like, if you start doing stuff just for money, you're lost in it, in the trap. It's not about working for money. It's like, what is your passion? Like, what do you really love doing? And then, create the wealth around that.
Yeah.
That's the attitude.
Absolutely. Where do you want to see yourselves in 20 years?
I'll probably have like 20 dogs by then.
Yes.
We definitely want like a nice home, for ourselves. I would like to have some land so that I could have a lot of animals, basically, as well as grow my own food.
As we go older, we work well together, and
maybe be enlightened by then.
A home is very important. And also community, even with our work of the courses, we have a community, so online community, so to speak, to help and support each other during these times we're in, right? And also see this opportunity right now with all the craziness. I always feel there's a silver lining. There's a revolution happening on some level, and even a financial revolution, right? But the way we see us, it's definitely, being of service, being aligned with what we truly value, and living prosperous as well at the same time, and creating abundance. And abundance is not just money. Abundance goes beyond money, right?
Yeah. If you could both go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
If I go back 18 years old, I would right away with like everything, I have no regrets. So everything is perfect. You know what I mean? But if, to entertain that question, I would have despite all your other pursuits, artistically, spiritually, emotionally, educate yourself financially as well.
Yeah. I would have probably given myself the same feedback.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I know we're coming towards the end. This has just been an amazing conversation, and what I'm taking away is, of course, that quote that money is fuel, because I do believe money is energy, and that it is an exchange, and that you can have spirituality and still be able to know your monetary worth in terms of the exchange, and that it doesn't make you bad, and I also really heard you trusting the universe in propelling you towards enlightenment or just better transformation, and that being in service is also an important component. And I'm excited that you're going to have land with lots of dogs and animals, because that's what I'm working on too. So.
No, you made a very interesting, good point. It's like the biggest is having faith and risk, and just getting out of, speaking for myself, also from my parents, their generation. When they grew up, my dad was born at the beginning of Second World War in Germany.
Right.
So it's all about physical survival. So there's not time to emotionally or spiritually process anything.
Right.
It's like, that's a security, and that's the thinking I took on as well. And it's fine to work for them, but we need to move beyond that and taking certain steps with faith and trust, and not giving into this self-diminishing negative self-talk. We all have that voice, puts us down.
And the more we can be conscious of that voice, the more we can then make choices that serve us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media? I know you've got a podcast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is lauramatsu.com, and I also have a Facebook. If you look up Laura Matsue, I have a Twitter. I just started using Twitter again. I have Instagram, so I have all of the
Same name.
platforms.
Yeah. Same for my website is veilofreality.com. So it's packed with a lot of information. I go pretty deep into all kinds of esotericism, spirituality, and offer various services on there. And Facebook page is also Veil of Reality, and also my personal Facebook page, Bernhard Guenther.
Beautiful. Well,
That's
it's
it.
been great having you on the show. I want to be sure to tell our audience, don't forget to share the love. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Money You Should Ask, all one word. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. Laura Bernhard, it has been an awesome conversation. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable, and I wish you much success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you so much, Bob. It was excellent. Thank you.